This has really sparked the ire of environmental groups, which are help get Biden elected.
Sure.
And whom Biden in many ways wants to serve and agrees with, and wants to sort of swiffen the transition away from oil and gas. But
Right.
even though the messaging has changed.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Jeremy Beaman. Jeremy, green groups are weeping about Willow. The Biden administration is taking a lot of incoming on this oil project. What's sort of the state of play here?
So this Willow Project is a giant oil project that ConocoPhillips, one of 6 oil and gas majors in the United States, has been wanting to develop for at least 5 years. They got the leases. This is a federal land project. They got the leases for this project in the 1990s. The Trump administration approved it, went to court, the administration lost, and the Biden administration sort of had to redo the thing. They ended up shrinking the project and approving it this week. But basically what's at play is the administration was faced with sort of meeting its obligations to review a project that this company wanted to develop, and they have a right to develop these leases under federal law. And so the administration had to decide how big the project could be, but they were sort of limited by the constraints of the laws governing federal oil and gas leasing. And so they moved forward, and this has really sparked the ire of environmental groups, which are help get Biden elected.
Sure.
And whom Biden in many ways wants to serve and agrees with, and wants to sort of swiffen the transition away from oil and gas. But
Right.
even though the messaging has changed in recent weeks, as we can talk about. But yeah, the environmental groups are frustrated. They filed suit again to stop this project from moving forward. So there's a lot of politics involved.
I mean, is there also just a broader tension between what the Biden administration is doing on oil and gas leasing and their stated green agenda?
I think so, and most people will tell you who are tuned into this that there's been a defined shift in the administration's messaging on this. Biden came into office wanting to restrict oil and gas leasing on federal lands, restrict drilling on existing leasing. And he tried that. He lost in court and carried out leasing since. And since the war started and prices shot up, the administration has sought more production, and they've sought it for longer, over longer periods of time. In the State of the Union, Biden said, we're going to need oil for a while, a decade, he said, but he also said for a while.
Sure.
And most forecasts, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm just spoke to this recently in front of a bunch of oil executives, said we're going to need it through mid-century. We're going to need new energy, but we're also going to need traditional energy that we pair with carbon capture technology. So they're acknowledging, if you will, that oil and gas demand are going to be around for a long time, and they're trying to serve their green energy goals, and to make it all mesh. We have to serve the energy system that we have now and transition it, is their position.
Right. So Biden has a climate agenda, and they've conceded that maybe the transition to a greener economy is going to take longer than originally anticipated, or maybe than originally they advertised themselves on the campaign trail. But there's also been other things that keep intervening, the general state of the economy, gas prices, war in Ukraine, that kind of make them have to sort of moderate their climate goals a little bit.
And the big piece of this, had it been any other country in the world, not any other, but any other than a top energy exporter in Russia, any other of the European, any other country neighboring Ukraine that was smaller and less of a heavyweight, especially in energy trade, than Russia, things would look a lot different right now.
Right.
The problem is the Russians, the Europeans and the Russians had a big energy trade going into the war, and the idea now is to turn that down to zero and to stop funding Putin's war chest, is the language often used.
Sure.
And so that provides the United States an opportunity to increase our own energy exports to them and sort of displace the Russian energy. But it requires a ramp up and building new infrastructure, and companies aren't going to do that unless they have longer term certainty. And so the Biden administration has authorize new exports and so forth, and they support this effort. And yeah, it's been the cause of a lot of ire among environmentalists who see new infrastructure as sort of locking in, as they say, the fossil fuels for decades to come.
Sure. Now, speaking of somebody who raises a lot of ire for reasons related to fossil fuel, the Democrats have a real Joe on Joe violence problem. There's this tension between Joe Biden and Joe Manchin, senator from West Virginia. What are some of the latest things, particularly on climate, where that Manchin is not really singing from quite the same song sheet as the president?
Yeah, Manchin has been doing sort of a defense run, really, of his voting for this bill. After the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, and he was the defining vote, really, he negotiated it down to the end, had his fingerprints all over it, really. There's some polling showing that his popularity was down. Now he's up for re-election in 2 years, or next year rather, and
in a state Trump has twice won by about 40 points.
Right, and of course he voted for this Democratic-only bill, and so he's really trying to rebrand the legislation. Of course, the administration and the Democrats who supported it have been calling it the greatest climate bill ever, climate change bill, green energy bill ever. And it was that. But Manchin wants everyone to see the energy security characteristics of it, which are, hey, it also directs the administration to carry out more oil and gas leasing. So that's fossil fuel energy. That's not green energy. It has a lot of nuclear things in there too. So the case Manchin is making, we need all of these energy sources so that we're not in the position ever that Europe is in right now. And what he's frustrated about is things aren't, on some elements of the bill, are not being implemented quickly enough to his liking, especially the electric vehicle tax credit thing. But one of the most recent things was, and this kind of goes down a rabbit hole a bit, but one of the things that the bill did at Manchin's direction really was it revitalized or brought back these oil and gas lease sales in the offshore that had been canceled and that otherwise would never have been carried out. But the bill said that Interior has to carry them out by specified dates. Well, one of these, there was a memo that Bureau of Ocean Energy Management accidentally published online before pulling it back that said basically it was kind of contemplating what can we do here with this lease sale. We have to do it, and they said, well, we could charge a lower royalty rate, which is how much of the production that the oil and gas company on this lease has to give back to the government. We could charge the higher royalty rate or the lower one. The lower one would probably end up in more energy development. The higher one is better for climate, though, and the sort of unspoken subpoint of that was it will discourage people from bidding on these leases and developing them ultimately because they'll have to pay more. So anyway, that frustrated Manchin because for him, this is an energy security bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, which ordered this lease sale to take place. And the administration elected for the higher royalty rate, and the response was very meager from industry. And so he's very frustrated that they're not sort of doing what was his intention with the bill, which was to really embrace and support more oil and gas production on federal lands.
And obviously, they called it the Inflation Reduction Act, and they were trying to distance it from the idea that it was another big spending package that was going to drive inflation. But the White House has also talked a lot about it as a climate bill.
Yeah, and like I said, it can accurately be framed that way.
Sure.
And it's all about how you look at it, really. This is a big piece of legislation, and you sort of can pick out and emphasize the things that you wish to, or call it what you want to. Manchin brought that up as we record this just hours ago. I was in a meeting or in an event with him, and he brought up how he had opposed the earlier version of this reconciliation package because of how large it was, and because he was concerned about its impact potentially on inflation. But he's really standing by his vote and holding the administration's feet to the fire, as he said, so that they implement it the way that he wants it to be implemented.
We'll see if he's able to rebrand it as the Joe Manchin Should Be Reelected Act.
We'll see.
Thank you, Jeremy. You can read Jeremy and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.